Between this manicure and my color palette for today's bracelet, I am clinging on to every last bit of autumn. It snowed here last night, and while it is all probably going to melt this week, I am just not ready for winter. So for this pattern today, you are going to need 16 strands and 7 different colors. So I'm using this brown strand as my center diamond piece, and then this is the color palette I'm going for today. And I'm very excited to work with these colors, although I am really needing to re-up on my collection because I'm really running out of a lot of more unique colors that aren't just rainbow and vibrant. But I just barely managed to find a good palette for today. And for this pattern, you will need 2 strands of each of your 6 colors here, and then for your diamond centerpiece, you will need 4 strands from it. And we'll measure these out to be about 35 to 40 inches. That works really nicely for about a 6.5 inch bracelet. If you want a shorter or a longer bracelet, you'll want to cut your strands accordingly. And if you want to have a loop like I am about to show and talk about, instead of individually measuring all of these 2 strands for each color, you can measure out 35 to 40 inches for one strand and then fold it in half to match up the ends and cut that off. And then you'll have a perfect loop instead of cutting everything. So for the loop on this bracelet, you're about to see me making it right now. I'm starting off making a threaded loop, but you can't quite make a teardrop loop on this pattern because it doesn't perfectly mirror. If you are looking at it on your own, you can see that the colors are split off 3 and 3 on both sides. So what I'm doing here is making a bit of a smaller threaded loop because the opening just needs to be big enough for one of your ties to go through. And then at the end, I am doing a square knot because that way it brings all of the strings together like you can see here. And then we can do sort of an open triangle end instead of making it in a sort of teardrop shape. And then when you have all your strings grouped together like this, it's way easier for you to go through and separate what colors need to be on what side. And for my color order, I'm going to the very top of the pattern and starting off on that triangle where it opens up. So if you don't have a bracelet book account or you don't use the variation feature on their website, you are severely missing out because it just makes it so much easier to input your color palette and figure out how you need to make your triangle end and what order you need your strings to be in to get it in the correct placement for the rest of the pattern. But I'm going to try to explain this the best that I can because I know my color palette is a little weird. It goes from dark green to yellow and then all of my oranges, so it feels a little bit more backwards. But since I can't really hold up my skeins anymore, I will just throw up a still really quick, and you can see this is how I had the order of my strings. If you want to do a rainbow pattern, number 1 would be red and then number 6 would be purple, obviously. So whether or not you want to have this sort of triangle end opening up is completely up to you. Obviously, it's going to make it a little bit easier when you start on the bracelet because your order is completely laid out for you. But that is completely optional. No matter what you want to do, you want to follow the same string order. So starting out from the middle and going to the left side, we have our middle diamond color, which mine is brown, and that'll be technically your 7th color, whatever isn't a part of the rest of your palette. And then we have color 1, then 3, and then 2. And as you can see, they're all grouped together. And then from the middle to the right side, we have our middle color again, and then it's 4, 6, 5. So it's not really too complicated of a color order. It just might feel a little bit more overwhelming considering we have so many strings to work with compared to usually my favorite, which is like 12 to 14. But the rest of the pattern also is very easy when you break it down. So we are going to pick up our middle 2 strands and we are going to make a forward knot with them. And then we are going to move outwards to the next 2 strands of our same color, and we are going to do essentially a mini little chevron. So with our left and right strands, we are going to bring them to the middle. So on the left side, take your left middle strand of the 2, do a forward knot, and then come over to the right side and pick up that other strand and do a backward knot onto the same colored strand to the left of it. And then you'll take your middle 2 strands and connect them with a forward knot. So we'll move over to the left side really quick, and we're going to pick up the next strand in line, which is color number 1 if you are watching this for the very first time. And you're going to do a forward knot onto your middle strand. And then you'll move on to the next strand, which is going to be the same color that we just knotted with, and again, make a forward knot. And then once you have that, you're going to take this middle colored strand and you're going to do backward knots along the next 3 strands to the left of it. And then on this 4th one, your very outer strand, you're going to do a backward forward knot. And while we're still working on this left side for a little bit, we're going to come back to our other middle strand here. And we are going to do backward knots onto the next 4 strands to the left of it here. And then on this 5th one, you will do a backward forward knot. And now we can leave the left side alone for a little bit and move over to our right side, where we are going to repeat everything we just did, but we're going to kind of mirror it. So we are going to move over to our first group of colors here next to our middle strand. We're going to pick up the first one in line and do a backward knot onto that one strand to the left of it. And then we're going to pick up the next strand of that same color and again do a backward knot onto your middle colored strand. And then with your middle colored strand, you are going to do forward knots across the next 3 strands to the right of it. And then on this 4th one here, you will do a forward backward knot. Then we're going to come back to the middle and pick up our other accent strand, I'm just going to call it. And we're going to make forward knots across the next 4 strands to the right of it. And then on the 5th one, you'll do a forward backward knot. And then this is where the pattern is going to get a little bit tricky, but shouldn't be too confusing. So I'm going to leave out 4 of the outermost strands on both the left and right side because we are not going to be working with them at the moment. So from the middle and splitting off our groups here, we're going to pick up the very first strand from the middle, and we are going to do forward knots across the next 3 strands to the right of it. And then on this 4th one here, we are going to do a forward backward knot. And then we are going to pick up the second strand of that same color, and we are going to do forward knots across the next 2 strings to the right of it. And then on the 3rd one here, we're going to do a forward backward knot. And then before we finish off with this group of colors, we're going to take this original first strand of the 2, and we're going to do a backward knot onto the string to the left of it. So we are working with the color group that is in between the 2 that were on the left side. So we're going to start off by picking up the left strand of those 2. We're going to do a backward knot onto the strand to the left of it, and then on the next one over, we'll do a backward forward knot. And then we're going to pick up the second strand of that color group, and we're going to do a backward forward knot onto this strand to the left of it. And then we'll do a forward knot onto the strand to the right of it, which is going to be the first strand of this color group here that we were knotting with earlier. And then you'll do a forward backward knot onto the next strand to the right of it. And then we're going to come back to the first strand of that color group that we're knotting with right now. And we're going to do a forward knot onto the strand to the right of it, and then on the next strand over, we will do a forward backward knot. And then we'll pick up the second color of that group again and do a backward knot onto the strand to the left of it. And now we're going to close up the diamond here and close off what we just worked on here. So on the left side, we're going to pick up our accent color that is more towards the center and not on the outside here. And we're going to do forward knots across the next 4 strands to the right of it. And then on the right side, we are going to also move in on the accent color that is closest to the center here. And we're going to do backward knots across the next 4 strands to the left of it. And we are not going to connect these middle 2 strands with a forward knot, and I will tell you why later. So we're going to come back to the left side again and pick up the second strand from our accent color, and we are going to do forward knots across the next 5 strands to the right of it. And again, move over to the right side and pick up the second strand of our accent color. And you will do 5 backward knots across all of the 5 strands to the left of it. And now for our final sections. Focusing on the left side first, we're going to take our outermost left strand and we're going to do forward knots across the next 5 strands to the right of it. And then we'll come back to our newest outermost left strand, and this time do forward knots across the next 4 strands to the right of it. And so now we are going to come back to our outermost left strand again. And this time we're going to do forward knots across the next 2 strands to the right of it. And then on this third one here, we will do a forward backward knot. And then come back to your outermost left strand again. This time you will only do a forward backward knot onto the string to the right of it. And then we're going to move over to our other colored strand from this previous row. And we're going to do backward knots across the next 2 strands to the left of it. Now we're going to move over to the right side and we are going to repeat everything that we just did, but you guessed it, we're going to mirror it. So with our outermost right strand, we're going to do backward knots across all of the next 5 strands to the left of it. And then we'll come back to our newest outermost right strand. And this time we will do backward knots just onto the next 4 strands to the left of it. And then with our newest outermost right strand, we are going to do backward knots across the next 2 strands to the left of it, and then on this third strand we will do a backward forward knot. And again, come back to your newest outermost right strand. But this time you will only do a backward forward knot onto the strand to the left of it. And then we'll move back over to that other strand of the same color and do forward knots across the next 2 strands to the right of it. And that is the whole pattern completed. And if you couldn't guess before why I left our accent strands unknotted when we brought them to the center, it's because if you need to follow the video again from the beginning steps, you can follow it completely seamlessly without trying to leave out any steps or add some extra ones. You can seriously just follow right from the chapter and follow it exactly the same. Now, obviously though, you can see your color order will change. So on our second set here, my colors are now 2, 4, 3 on the left side, and then 5, 1, 6. So that's why I strongly advise you to have a variation saved on this pattern, because it's just going to make it so much easier to follow along with the pattern moving on to the next steps, while also following the video if you need to be watching it again, because obviously your color order is going to keep changing until it does eventually repeat itself. So I hope that's something that you'll keep in mind for if you haven't been doing it before already, because it is really one of Bracelet Book's probably best features on their website. But in any case, I want to thank you guys so much for watching this video today. I really hope you enjoyed it and were able to follow along pretty well. If you want, you can check out my previous video here, or you might like this one. Again, thank you all so much, and I'll see you in the next one.